Okay. Test my audio like always. It's lagging, so we'll take a second. Check the settings. Audio. Microphone. Okay. Okay, sounds like audio's going through. Okay. So we are back. So if you weren't aware, so sorry I'm late, first of all. I know I usually start at 2. I said I was gonna start at 2 p.m. Both my dogs had to go to the bathroom and they both like to fuck around and waste time instead of just peeing. Um but we went to getting back, going over looking at some of the flavor the Edge of Eternities cards. Um so as I mentioned before, Magic the Gathering streams the plan is to stream 2 p.m. every Sunday, when possible. And then 2 p.m. on Sundays are gonna be 2 p.m. on Saturdays are gonna be Magic the Gathering. 2 p.m. on Sundays are gonna be video gaming stuff, although I haven't been very consistent about that. And then I'm gonna look through the rest of the cards in the set. I'm probably not gonna look at any of the alternate arts. I'm probably gonna I'm gonna look at these scenic ones, but I'm probably gonna stop here. Or I'm probably not gonna. There's no way I'm going past the viewport lands just because there's other stuff in Magic I want to go over, like the articles in the color pie and stuff. And I realized that as fun as it would be if I sat here doing at the pace I'm going at one color each weekend, it would take me like literally months to get through all the Edge of Eternity stuff. I went through all the commander stuff and all that like kind of things. So unfortunately for now, we're gonna just go through like the base set, no alternate arts for the most part. And then once we go through the base set, we'll move on to probably like the color pie articles stuff that I've written, stuff that other people have written. Um so yeah. So here we have Aphrael Dreaming Acolyte. I've honestly talked about this card a lot already. If you see me read the story, I talk about it a ton. So I'm probably not gonna go too deep into it. But here we have Aphrael being blue black, which implies like a change over like change in philosophy over the course of the events of the story. I always love when they do that when they have like different characters shopping in different colors. Um, the posings here is interesting because I always talk about how height's being used to relate like a sort of power or authority. Here, Aphrael's literally kneeling to whatever this is. So in this case, when you kneel to something, you're basically like putting it above you and worshiping it. But all these people are kneeling around Aphrael. All these monoists are kneeling around Aphrael, which implies that Aphrael's probably doing something important. They're all respecting Aphrael in this moment, but Aphrael in turn is respecting something larger, and something that they are probably also respecting. Um, Aphrael's other card is his mono black card is just purple, just has like a lot of purple and black color scheme. But here we see like a bit of blue. Like Aphrael himself is just purple and black like always, but there's like a little blue to the magic here to signify that it's like a blue black card. Um, Again, this podium rising Aphrael, but like kind of above the crowd, but not like so far above that like it's like he's literally the Messiah or anything. In the background we have like this light, so we have a light literally beaming down on Aphrael, like this little spotlight. But the rest of the light there's a golden light beaming down on Aphrael, which kind of implies like a bit of holiness, like a common symbolism in like Western art is like golden light beams or something hitting you to signify some sort of holiness. But the background besides that is kind of just like darkly colored. So it kind of helps highlight that Aphrael's the most important one here because Aphrael literally has the light on him and is being hit with all this light and is lit up, and everyone else is kind of in shadow, and so is everything else. Um, Legendary creature, human cleric. When Aphrael enters, draw 2 cards, then discard 2 cards unless you discard an artifact card. During your turn, Aphrael's death touch. I'm worthy of the Father's blessing. I can prove it. Art is by Christy Balanescu. Um, I forget exactly what I thought with the flavor here was the mechanics. It does pair with it does technically work with the Void Stone, and the fact that if you have the Void Stone in your hand, you can discard it to go up a card. Um, you could also see this as like Aphrael trying to understand like what's happening like with his sister and like the religion, but like his like kind of crisis of faith. So he gains knowledge about what's happening, but also becomes scared and potentially loses it, or represents sort of mental shortcoming. But also death touch, which probably just meant to represent gravity magic. But interesting that's during your turn too, so like it's meant for you to go aggressive with it. So you swing in with a death touch creature. I've talked about this more in the past. I probably am forgetting like a lot of stuff I went over, but I also don't want to linger on this card too much because I already talked about this. Um, so yeah. Biomech engineer. One green, one blue. Creature insect artificer. When this creature enters, create a lander token. Eight generic. Draw two cards and create a 2/2 colorless robot artifact creature token. Life is a pattern, not a material. Monster. So I'm just trying to figure out what's going on. There's a lot of shit going on. So lander token I think represents just generally with the Emetians, a lander token is just going to represent their goal of terraformation. They want to terraform Evendo to make it more habitable because it's mostly frozen over right now, but they've terraformed the equator and they're working outward. Um, I assume the reason this costs 8 specifically just so it's not OP, but like I don't know. Okay, so if this is a robot. I'm just not 100% sure what's going on in the start. Not that it's like badly done. It's just that like is it supposed to be a robot or but like so here we have like an Emetian, once again one of the more green Emetians. The Emetians from the Sothera system, the system that we witnessed during the Edge of Eternities set. There's more systems besides the Sothera system, but they seem like they're usually either green or pink of some color. Emetians, there's Emetians all over like the Edge because Emetians are probably one of the more popular species based on like what we know, because how they work is they get spread around by seed ships across the universe. So there's Emetians like in all kinds of places. There's like Emetians in all kinds of different systems, which also probably look vastly different because we know that they genetically modify. Once again, we have the Emetian armor, where it looks like it's almost like a part of the exoskeleton, the way it's done, but it's a little hard to tell. And here we have like a lot of like different colors. This almost looks like vaguely looks kind of like what do the angels turn themselves into when they on New Capenna, or they didn't turn themselves into, they got turned to Jews. Halo. Vaguely looks like Halo. Halo, it was spread out throughout the multiverse during the Phyrexian conflict, the Phyrexian invasion. But I don't think this is supposed to be Halo specifically, because it just wouldn't make a ton of sense to me. I do like that. It's interesting. It's like a bunch of different colors because it's like a green blue card. So obviously multicolor are usually gonna have like more colors. There is like a lot of blue, but it's just like a lot of also like purple. And there's like a lot of green here too. So the flavor text is life is a pattern, not a material. So again, I don't know if this thing's supposed to be alive. It could be. Well, if it's a robot, well, if it's alive, then like obviously I think the idea is that's reusing. It's like a pattern, so the idea is that's like kind of reusing the life force or whatever this is. But if it's a robot with like a mana core or something, then I guess the idea is that it's using this to give the robot life or use it to power something else. I'm not 100% sure on that one. But there's also like something here. I don't really know what this is. Maybe for some reason it reads like pie, but it could also be, I think it's just like wood or something. But also interesting that if you follow like the wisp, it kind of forms like almost like a circle around this thing, like this person. So like so there is like a little focus here. And then, of course the background's like mostly like yellow, has like a yellow tint to it. Biotech specialist. Red green. Creature insect scientist. When this creature enters, create a lander token. It's an artifact with 2 generic. Tap. Sacrifice this token. Search your library for a basic land card. Put it onto the battlefield. Tapped, and then shuffle. Whenever you sacrifice an artifact, this creature deals 2 damage to each target opponent. Modify these LLs and try again. Alexandre. I don't know why I'm mispronouncing that. Honore. So here's obviously like a reference to how the Emetians are like genetically modifying themselves. So they're clearly modifying the alleles. They're trying to build either some living organism or another type of Emetian to help them with that job. The Emetians kind of already have like a bit of a green-red color palette because a lot of them have red eyes and green skin / exoskeletons. But here, this one also has like red fingertips, so trying to like emphasize the fact that it's a green-red card a little bit more, despite the fact like the background's like mostly blue, mostly like a turquoise blue. I do like the look of like this hologram thing where it's kind of like going to like specific points to form an image as opposed to just like going in like kind of like a fan shape. It's like focusing on specific points. Um, I don't really know why. Okay, I know I understand why I care about sacrificing artifacts. The idea is that you're sacrificing lander tokens because you need to activate those, and that's the flavor. So ideally, the flavor is that you're sacrificing lander tokens. But I don't really know why it deals 2 damage. If the point is like modify these LLs and try again, um, it could be that you could interpret this as it going wrong every time they try to modify the LLs, so it deals damage to something. They're fighting off something that's coming out of like the land because we know there's stuff like hidden in the evento like ice that sometimes gets like thawed out. Could be that. I'm 100% sure on that one. But once again, we see like the ships look more organic in the fact that they are more irregular shapes, but they're like also like smoother. They're not like geometric hard shapes like with the cav, for example. And there's a very like strong contrast between the foreground and the background because the background has like this. It's like I said, it's mostly turquoise and blue, like a turquoise and blue tint to it. But here, the character in front is like mostly warm colors and it's like way less blue. Like this is clearly like just green, but the background's like more bluey. And once again, the technology looking more organic, except for the so like even though like the ships and stuff look more organic, the stuff like that like the armor they actually wear tends to look more like more industrial, but it also looks like it's like almost like a part of their body, like it's almost like shit like the way like if you look at like the legs here, like it pops out, like the legs go up here, like this thing is kind of in it, so it makes it almost look like it's like built to be part of their exoskeleton, like they replaced part of their exoskeleton with this, and then they have like their fans. I assume the idea is that it's like for ventilation because we know they have like a kind of a heat theme, because we know they're melting all the ice and stuff. And I don't really know what this thing on the back is. Usually it's used to like power like their thermal wands or whatever, but it seems like they're using the power like this communication device instead. And I guess if you consider like the thermal wands and stuff, then the dealing 2 damage could represent like the heat they're using to like, melt things, which can also be used to defend themselves. So there's that. And once again, this is one of the more insectoid emitians. It's a bit hard to get a read on like it's harder to get a read since they don't have like human eyes and stuff. But obviously you can still you can still tell they're like talking with this person about something. And I suppose this is like them drilling into the ice or something. So I guess you can interpret the deal 2 damage as like whenever you melt the ice, you burn something. You can burn someone. Cosmogoyf. 1 black, 1 green. Creature, elemental, Lurgoyf. This creature's power is equal to the number of cards you own in exile, and its toughness is equal to that number +1. Alert, Cosmogoyf. Recommended action, run. PSS Eric, shipboard, computer. Final transmission. Chris Ron. So, if you don't know what a Lurgoyf is, the gimmick of most Lurgoyfs tends to be that they care about the graveyard in some way. So they usually get bigger. Well, specifically, they usually get bigger based on like what the power tends to revolve around like how many of a certain type of card you have in the graveyard. So, for example, when this creature attacks alone, it gets X plus X plus X until the end of turn, where X is the number of card types among cards in your graveyard. And then Lurgoyf's power is equal to the number of creature cards in all graveyards, and toughness equal to that +1. So all Lurgoyfs kind of revolve around that kind of mechanic where it's like they care about certain thing, like they care about card types being in the graveyard, either about a specific card type being in a graveyard or having a wide number of card types in the graveyard. I think there's one that cares about instants and sorceries. Here we go. Magnivore's power and toughness are equal to the number of sorcery cards in all graveyards. So stuff like that. Kind of weird that the red one cares about sorceries and the blue one cares about instants. You think that'd be swapped a little bit because I feel like, I mean, it works either way because they both care about non-creature spells. But anyway, this is a little bit different because this Lurgoyf cares about the exile, which I guess you could see as like a super graveyard or being like paralleling the graveyard. So I mean that's fine. So when stuff gets like exiled from your graveyard, I suppose, then it still gets bigger. Because I guess the weakness for most Lurgoyfs would be that obviously if your graveyard gets exiled, your shit's gone. Like your Lurgoyf is like shit out of luck and becomes like a 1/1. But here the Lurgoyf would actually become more powerful if your graveyard gets exiled. So you have something to actually do if you want to put this in a Lurgoyf deck. Color wise, obviously green and purple mostly. With like some black, just like because it's a green black card. There's a lot of obviously it's made of stardust, which just like shows how massive this thing is. Like there's like so it's like made of stardust, looks really big. It's like clearly like a cosmic entity. We see it like destroying a ship, so it's probably very big. And same as Cosmogoyf's like cosmic, so there's that too. I do like how there's like some parts of this creature don't like end like so like clearly like the hands and head are very visible because they're bright, and like the claws like clearly like these are clearly like claws, right? But certain parts of the creature are like more like kind of implied. Like yeah, there's an arm here, but the arm like doesn't have like a hard edge where like an arm would end. Like it kind of fades off into like wispy cosmic dust. Um, so it's like so it's not a completely physical creature. I do like how like the head is like bright green, but the mouth is like like more close to like the blackness of space. Like you don't want this thing to eat you. Deodorant synthesis amalgam. So actually we hear about a bit about this person in the Legends of article. So let's pull that up real quick, just like for a refresher. So is Afrail, but I talked enough about Afrail that I feel like we probably don't need to go over that if you've been keeping up with these at all. Sorry, what was this thing's name again? Diadrin. And the art's by Igor Grachani. Grachani. Diadrin. I'm in the wrong article. You. Diadrin, Meccan, they, them. Abandoned on an uncharted moon with limited mineral deposits, Diadrine discovered that their nanotech self-repair protocol quickly ran out of applicable materials. After years of analysis, the Meccan determined the local flora contained sufficient structural integrity from which to graft repairs onto themselves. Roots quickly took hold in their system. Over time, the synthesis of plant and machine progressed to the point where the two became indistinguishable. Recently, Diadrin has had the urge to consume nutrients at an accelerated rate. Self-diagnostics did not report any malfunctions, but their symptoms match the local flora's propagation cycles. So they basically become some sort of cyborg of some sort with organic parts. Um, Once again, this is one I already talked about. So once again, even though this is made of metals, clearly like organic shapes, where like they're like smooth, irregular shapes, like they're not structured like a robot normally would be. Like normally when you look at a robot, they have their parts like structured, they're built for a specific purpose. Um, take a look at Red Tiger Meccan. It's like clearly structured. Like these are clearly parts that fit together. But this is like more like a flowy organic stuff where stuff just kind of flows into each other. So on this plane, white tends to have like a lot of robots, and then green tends to have like a lot of like I guess that the green and white represents like a merger of like the inorganic and organic in this case, where it's like you know white tends to care a lot about robots in this plane and the idea of like the greater good and robots helping being built to like put other things first to perform their task, and green like in this case just like incorporating nature into yourself and having like suddenly having these instincts to do certain things like reproduce. Um, Legendary artifact creature construct. Diadrin. Let me make sure my audio is working. Robots helping. Diadrin artifact creature construct. Trample. Diadrin enters with a number of +1/+1 counters on it equal to the amount of mana spent to cast it. Whenever you attack, you may remove a +1/+1 counter from each of two creatures you control. If you do, draw a card and create a 2/2 colorless robot artifact creature token. Igor, yeah, I already took the name. So I think the play like so you just pump a bunch of mana into it, and when you attack, you remove +1/+1 counters. And I guess the idea is that it starts creating robots because it's starting to like to spread. So the robots are artifact creatures, but I guess the idea is that there'd be a mix of artifact, like because even cyborgs in Magic the Gathering tend to be like artifact creatures. So I think the flavor here is that like Diadrin is starting to make other other robots. And obviously this plays well because one trample. So the bigger this thing is, the more you can swing in with it because it'll deal the extra damage will go hit the opponent anyway. And then this wants you to go wide obviously. So the more creatures you have, the more there's to put +1/+1 counters on, etc. Very interesting that this like thing is mostly silver with like some red and black, but it's green white. You can tell this thing is different from like the background a little bit because obviously the background's like this tint of color, and even like the most of the areas kind of just like this bluish hue, but the robot itself is like mostly like silver and like red and black. And there's like something like potentially growing inside of it. So, which I assume the thing isn't like a separate entity; it's like part of the robot. It's like organic parts growing. So very irregular, very interesting. Gene Morph Imago. Should I know what an Imago is? Latin for image. So gene morph image, maybe. Um, Gene morph imago. 1 green, 1 blue. Creature, insect, druid. Flying. Landfall. Whenever a land you control enters, target creature has base power and toughness 3/3 until the end of turn. Until end of turn. If you control 6 or more lands, the creature has base power and toughness 6/6 until end of turn instead. We can all be more than we are. Let me help. Brian Velez. So flying, it has wings. So once again, Magic usually pretty on the nose about flying creatures by it shows them in flight, so you know it has flying. But in this case, it's just kind of the wings imply of the ability to fly, even though it's on the ground. So landfall represents the terraformation process of that the E minions are using on Avendo. Whenever a land is unthawed, i.e., whenever you gain access to a land and you play it, it gets a buff, and then it can make things stronger if you control a ton of land because you're trying to get as many lands as possible by terraforming. So once again, we have like their like power pack things, which have like clearly thermal vents of some sort. But to differentiate it a bit from red, they tone up. They go like a bit. They lean away from like fire and like lightning more to like this green like vent energy and like maybe some sort of plasma. So clearly like this. So clearly this like art shows like a creature drawing power from the land, right? Because the idea is that every time you play a land, that makes this creature more powerful. It goes from like a 1/3 to a 3/3 to potentially a 6/6, and it can also enhance other creatures. So there's like this idea of drawing power from the land, which is represented by like if you look at where the energy is actually coming from in the art, it's being pulled from like the plants and the life forms here of the land. So as you unthaw land, as you get access to more land, there's more power to draw from, which is then pulled here, and then count the spiral where it's sucked into this thing for more energy. Once again, this is a very interesting Eumedion where like where the actual armor begins and like the organic exoskeleton starts is kind of like ambiguous. Like these are clearly like robotic robot armor over the legs, or maybe even like robotic prosthetic legs, robotic prosthetic legs. But like, is the head like have like metal armor over it, or is it supposed to be armor? Are these like the same? So it's kind of like that question where it's like where the actual armor begins and ends is questionable, but like in a very interesting way. Obviously they want to show how much power this thing has. So not only is like, you know, it taking so also interesting point that even like in the background here, like even the background is swirling. So it's kind of like this representing like being almost in tune with nature and the land around you in like a specific way. Obviously this is not what's causing the land to spiral, right? But the idea is that metaphorically represents like a connection or parallel with the land. That as the land spirals, so does this thing too. So it's kind of like mirroring the land and drawing power into itself, and it's connected in that way. And obviously they just want to show how powerful this is because not only is it bright and crackly and bright and, you know, strong, but this person has to brace themselves. So for either when it fires off or whatever it's gonna do. So they're braced. So there's so much power they have to brace themselves. They have to grab their other arm to hold it to make sure it doesn't like launch them back or anything. So yeah, interesting that we can kind of see like their face, like their expression a little bit better because they have like the pupils. They have like pupils and red eyes. Halia. So once again, we've already talked about sorry, my nose got stuff. We already talked about Halia a lot. This card's a lot in the when we were reading through the Magic the Gathering story. So if you want to catch those, you can. But basically, the idea is that Halia is green white, so 2 generic, green and 2 white. Legendary creature, human soldier. When Halia enters or attacks, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. Whenever one or more creatures you control with +1/+1 counters on them deal combat damage to a player, draw a card. By the eternal and ever-flowing light, I swear myself to this cause. So we're actually gonna pull up Sir Vondem here because there's actually a pretty good story being told here. So Halia is green-white in this card, right? And to me, that actually expresses like a bit of a storytelling happening within her card, between her card and Sir Vondam. Because Sir Vondam, her mentor, is white-black. And black is enemy colors of both green and white. The reason for this is that green and white is all about putting others before yourself as much as possible when you combine them anyway. Because green's like the idea that there are some things that are so much bigger than you, so much more important than you, that you should always put them first. Like the natural order, the cycle of life and death. There's stuff that you should be willing to sacrifice yourself for. And then white's the idea that you should put other people above yourself. You should always prioritize the group whenever possible, society, help as many people as possible, right? But black is all about the self. Black is all about you should look out for yourself first because you cannot you know, the only one's gonna look out for you the best. Look out for you at the day gonna be yourself. So black is all about you should come first. If something if you screw if you know if sacrificing like a bunch like other people to get what you want does gets what you need, then you should do it. Um, but in Sir Votem's case, he's obviously not mono black. He's white black. And I think in this specific case, it's combining white goals with black means. So it's the idea that white's a desire for like the greater good, making the world a better place, and then black's goal of you know, power through opportunity to get what you need, get what you want at any cost necessary. So in this case, it represents you take white means I want peace, and then I'll use black goals, opportunity, any means necessary to get it done. And I think this is like where the conflict between Halia and Sor Vonem in the story begins, right? Because Halia is clearly like leaning more towards green-white. This idea that there are more lines you shouldn't cross, and you should put other people first. But Sor Vonem has this sort of white leaning, but he's like, I'm willing to do whatever it takes to succeed, though, which Halia is not, which creates like a conflict between the characters and what leads to their schism. And the artist is Justine Dura. Whenever Halia enters or attacks, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. Whenever one or more creatures you control with +1/+1 counters on them deal combat damage to a player, draw a card. By the eternal and ever-flowing light, I swear myself to this cause. So the flavor text kind of like already connects the art a bit, because we have Halia leaning a little bit. She's Ascendant Cadet, right? So she's a cadet. She's not the highest rank, but she's leaning in supplication. So even though we're looking at her head on, she's leaning down. She's like giving up her height. Whatever height she has, which kind of shows that she's putting herself in a position of vulnerability. She's not trying to posture herself in a position of power, and swearing herself to a cause. And then obviously there's like a bright light shining down on her. She's literally in the spotlight, which is also like reinforced by the fact there's like this pattern on the ground about where the light is hitting. And then you have these people in the background, but they don't really matter as much because you can't see their faces, which is kind of the point. The point is that Halia's face is the most important. You should be paying attention to Halia. But they're standing straight up, so they're not in the same position that Halia is, where they're not like giving up power, or it's not like a symbolic giving up a power or supplicate or bowing of supplication. Also very interesting that like this art's very, very symmetrical. Like these people are like mirrored. Like look at this thing, like right here going on the shoulder and this, so they're mirrored. So they're like the same on either side, and even here the doorway's kind of mirrored. And Halia's head's kind of like in this frame, which helps highlight it, which creates like this kind of halo effect, but kind of like a square halo. It's kind of funny, but it creates like this sort of halo effect. Like there's like this bright light coming from down the hall, or whatever, shining from behind Halia's head to show like almost like this holiness or reverence. I mean, obviously a lot of gold and white color palette, just to show it's a white card. And it's also green, but it's like less clear in the art. So I have to wonder if like maybe the color alignment got changed later in development, but it could also just be that how we see a mono white Halia later, so they don't want to confuse people. +1/+1 counters I think represents Halia wanting to help people, so she buffs people, she tries to save people, and then you get rewarded by card draw, by getting information out of it. Sure, so Sir Vondam, I already talked about this a ton, but Sir Vondam, in the story, he's basically prophesized to die. But he doesn't die because like shit gets weird. So Sir Vodem Sunstar Exemplar, 1 white, 1 black, legendary creature, human knight, vigilance, menace. Whenever that creature you control dies or is put into exile, put a +1/+1 counter on Sir Vondam, and you gain 1 life. When Sir Vondam dies or is put into exile while its power is 4 or greater, destroy up to 1 target landline permanent. Ryan Pancoast. So as I mentioned earlier, Sir Vondam's prophesied to die within the story. And the interesting thing is that Sir Vondam actually wants to die because like the prophecy comes from an angel. And angels are a big deal in the Suma's faith, because of the relation to like the stars and stuff. So so whenever a creature you control dies, Sor Vondam gets a +1/+1 counter. Basically, he fights harder and you get like a reward out of it. But he wants to die when his power is 4 or greater. So when he's at his most powerful is when he wants to die, when you want to kill him. He's at his apex when he gets powerful, and then he dies, which kind of represents how in the story how he wants to die. He's trying to die. Because by not killing him, theoretically, you're not using him to his full potential. I mean, theoretically, like obviously there's gonna be situations in Magic where you don't want to kill him because you have like a 10/10 on the board. But theoretically, this is a card that says, I want you to kill me. Which represents the white and black both have like themes of sacrifice mechanically in Magic the Gathering. White doesn't care about sacrificing itself for like the greater good for other people, and then black is about sacrificing others. Black is fine with sacrificing others. So flavor-wise, they're both colors that get a lot of sacrifice. but for different reasons, and how they sacrifice tends to be a little bit different. But here they just combine to something that cares about both sacrificing others for a cause, because like we said, Servo Venom is like a little bit more like white means through black goals, so any means necessary. So Servo Venom's like, I will sacrifice other people or creatures or whatever for the cause, but I'm also willing to sacrifice myself. Then Vigilance and Menace, because he's insanely good at fighting. And this art's very interesting because it's clearly like a bunch of monoists and like a bunch of armor. And this it's like there's like a ton of purple. It's like a tide of purple and like dark purple. But Servo Venom stands like in contrast to that with the white and gold and like this little beam shining down on him. Like it's almost like this reminds me of like almost like Renaissance art. Not just like in his fucking beauty, but also just like the way it's framed, like this holy light coming down. Like this is a person of like we're supposed to like revere in this specific context, fighting off like this horde of like monoists. And once again, I talked about this earlier, but yellow and purple are actually like complementary colors, which means they actually sit opposite from each other in the color wheel. So you see that. So red and green are also complementary, so that's why you see like a lot of red green pairings like Mario and Luigi. And then contrast that, you have Wario and Waluigi, because yellow and purple are opposites, so they mirror in that way. So here we have someone with gold and yellow, with yellow light shining down on them, like fighting off like these purple colored people, which helps like draw like emphasize the conflict and contrast. Interestingly, Servo Venom is white black, but like his color palette's almost like completely gold and white, and the purple in this like in the enemies kind of used to imply like, so you look at the card and go like, oh, it's a white black card because there's a lot of purple to represent black. And I do like this blue underglow here, but yeah. And also I talked about height once again. So here Servo Venom is the tallest person in this frame, despite being outnumbered and overwhelmed. You don't get the sense that he's like, well, despite being outnumbered severely, you don't get the sense that he's overwhelmed, because if he was overwhelmed, he'd be like down here getting his shit kicked in. But he's up here above them, and then he's fighting them off, and also just high ground is good in the fight. So you get the sense that even though he's like outnumbered, this guy isn't gonna lose, or if he is gonna lose, he ain't gonna lose without a fight. Like he's not a pushover. He's not gonna get shit on by like, despite the numbers advantages. So Venom the Lucent. Is Lucent a word that sounds like something light related? Glowing with or giving off light. So yeah, light related. I'm saying that word for the next time I need a descriptor for something. Art by Christy Balanescu. Didn't we just get a card, like a piece of art with that Christy did? Hold on. Ryan, Christy. I don't know why I'm looking this up. It probably isn't important to my point, but yeah. Oh yeah, Christy did the one for Alfrail. Anyway, so once again, a very triumphant looking piece of art, because once again, like I said, height's being messed with. Not like height as in like, I'm 6 foot. I'm 6'7", not that kind of height, but the height like where people are being placed under you, like based on like where you stand. So here, this person, we can tell Servo Venom's in a place of triumph, Servo Venom the Lucent, because these people are all on the same side, but they're like lower, and this person, and the posture is also just different, like straight back, raising hand, putting himself above these people, not in the sense that I think he's like thinks he's better, but like the idea that he's like the main character here, and he's like in a position of like a power and strength, like a beacon that people can rally around. 2 generic, 1 white, 2 black for 5 total. Legendary creature, Human Knight. Death Touch, Lifelink. Whenever Servo Venom enters or attacks other creatures you control, gain +1/+0 and gain Death Touch until the end of turn. A New Dawn, burning away the darkness. Christy Balanescu. So Death Touch and Lifelink. Once again, Death Touch I think is just the idea that we see in the story that like Servo Venom is very, very dangerous. I think he can hit like 8 times per second. So yeah, he's very dangerous. He's a modified. He's a super soldier. He's a modified human being. Lifelink, I think, just represents just like helping you out or whatever. Whenever Servo Venom enters or attacks, other creatures you control gain +1/+0 and gain Death Touch until the end of the turn. So one of the ways Magic the Gathering is very on the nose with like how for like what it's trying to show you. So for example, Magic the Gathering, if a creature has flying, it usually tries to show you by giving the creature either wings or by more often just showing it literally in flight. So you look at this card, you go, "Oh, this is a creature with flying." If the card wants you to go wide and have a bunch of creatures, it just puts a bunch of creatures like on the art, so you know that, oh, you don't want to play this alone. This creature's at its strongest when it's playing with other people. So sorry, adjusting. So here you want as many creatures as possible because they each get +1/+0. But more importantly, I think to gain death touch. So if you swing with a bunch of them or block with even like one of them, and they all have death touch, or with whenever attack enters or attacks. Never mind. So it wants to go offensive, wants to attack, which does make sense for Vondam. He's very like he's very like zealot. He's like a very zealous character. Like wants to go do right by the faith, and very active. Like he's willing to kill like all those cav to do what he thinks is like the right thing. So we have like a more aggressive like offensive take where it's like they gain death touch and then you want to swing with them. And the more creatures you have with death touch, the more dangerous it is. And so when I'm here, very interesting. So the planet or whatever, the moon or planet, whatever frame behind him creates like a frame behind him, like a sort of implied frame, and helps you draw attention to him. And here we have like all this purple like fire. I assume it's like Mono's fire. And there's like this tint of purple that's like around all these people, like it's kind of like overwhelming them, or they're getting hit with like purple bolts. But Sorvanum is like not being hit and doesn't have like a purple tint, which once again shows like a position of power, makes him stand out a bit. He's not being overwhelmed by like the Mono's forces. So yeah, also like a lot of yellow and gold. Even though the flag's like fluttering, I do like how this flag like is like glowing. And once again, yellow and purple contrast. They're complementary colors. They're opposite of each other in the color pie or color wheel, not pie. I do like how these rocks are like jagged in a way that like it feels like everything's like pointing in this direction, right? So we have the fire going this way, obviously, but these characters are all facing this way, like off screen, and even like the rocks are pointing that way. Like everything is screaming that they're trying to push this way. They want to go to the right. It's like something to the right is stopping them, but they want to push that way. And obviously, like these characters are less important because even though you see their faces, like they're less detailed. Servatiums is more detailed, and these characters don't even like you can't even see their faces, but still. And you could also interpret this as being like at some point before Sorvenom gets the prophecy because he doesn't reward you for like killing him here, or it could be at some point after where he's just like he realizes that he has to kill Holly instead to make things right in a way. So thus killing him doesn't really do anything per se. Infinite Guideline Station. So 1 white, 1 blue, 1 black, 1 red, 1 green for a Wooburg cost. A legendary artifact spacecraft. When Infinite Guideline Station enters, create a tapped 2/2 colorless robot artifact creature token for each multicolored permanent you control. Flying. Whenever an Infinite Guideline Station attacks, station. Flying. Whenever an Infinite Guideline Station attacks, draw a card for each multicolored permanent you control. Piotr Dura. So it's just, once again, like with all the spacecrafts, it's like the borderless art, which I think is meant to represent the idea that spacecrafts can go because it's a space opera set. So spacecrafts can go where like you couldn't go on foot. This idea that spacecrafts would like give you a sense of freedom that would otherwise not be available to you. So it is a Wooburg card. I think it's just meant to represent. So I think it cares about multicolored because the idea is that the pinnacle has to be mostly neutral, and the idea that all these people are coming through the station. So you want as many different people coming to the station because neutral ground as possible. And so it rewards you for having like different like multicolored permanents and different people from different walks of life. And maybe even this idea of like uniting the different color philosophies, like this idea of like the color philosophies potentially working harmoniously. Despite this, it isn't as colorful as a lot of Wooburg cards are. A lot of Wooburg cards try to work in like, either rainbows or just like white, blue, black, red, green, or white, blue, purple, red, and green. But here it's like mostly silver and blue. The Pinnacle tends to have like a bit of a silver coloration with some blue. And then here we have like the Sothera Super Void, which is like purple. And a bunch of ships going in and out. I think it's a nice detail that they have the station move because it's like obviously it has to be able to move. I feel like a lot of like a basic sci-fi take would just be like, oh, it's just a satellite, so it just doesn't have any like thrusters. But I like how it's like position itself, like it can move around, etc., etc. And if you don't know, this Infinite Guideline Station, I believe, is so not every ship has like can use their warp drive to like travel faster than light, because not every ship can like handle that or have enough space for that. But so the idea is you come here, you get a ferry, and the ferry like faster than light travels away to a different system. So it's basically like an airport in space, kind of. Like imagine if you drove your car into the airport and parked it on an airplane. I'm not doing a good job explaining it. It's basically an airport because not every ship can go faster than light. So there's ferries that go faster than light. So if you want to go in our system, this is where you go. I guess drawing a card we know represents information. So I guess it represents like a sort of multiculturalism potentially, or like at least the goal of the Pinnacle. So yeah. My dog is barking. He should be fine though. Interceptor Mechan. 2 generic, 1 black, 1 red. Artifact creature robot. Flying. Whenever this creature enters, return target artifact creature from your graveyard to your hand. Void. At the beginning of your end step, if a non-land permanent left the battlefield this turn, or a spell was warped this turn, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. Leonardo Santana is the artist. So I actually like the little like weird. There's like this weird knife stinger thing, but it has like the claws. It kind of reminds like the war claws we see like on some of the cav, and it's even like the same color. So like Tunnock's like all folded up, but I'm gonna see if I can find a better example. So like imagine like these work claws kind of. So this also to me implies like it's cat technology here. It has like a similar sort of like geometric blockiness in some areas, and also like the same like colored lightning and stuff. The cat have like are usually the ones with this very specific like neon green yellow coloring on their stuff. So I think it's like a cav thing, and because of that, I think the idea of like the void here is that you know, they're on the planet Caveron which is currently crumbling up. Caveron. So it's Caveron, and then Caveron's broken up to Caveron that is and Caveron that was. The Caveron that is part is the one that's like crumbling away at the fastest rate. So I think the idea is that the void here represents like stuff being cast into the void as the planet crumbles apart. So it's an interceptor. So I guess the idea is you throw it down and it's meant to. So we know the Cav are kind of obsessed with like trying to, like, you know, find like pieces of like their old civilization on the crumbling planet before it's like lost forever. So I guess here that's what the graveyard, like returning an artifact creature card out graveyard from your hand is it flies in, it saves like an artifact or a person, and then you get it, you can play it again, and the void is like, you know, if stuff gets lost, or spells warped, it gets stronger. It fights harder because it's some sort of interceptor. Interesting choice. I have like the blue eyes because it's clearly like orange and whatever, orange and black, which makes sense for like a red black card. But like the eyes are blue, they're very striking. And there's like thrusters that almost have like this kind of lightning effect. Interestingly, it's interesting how like there's like all this like, you know, clouds and stuff and like sky, but the Mechan happens to be right in front of like the ship or whatever, which helps draw attention to this specific part of the drawing. And obviously, very dangerous because it has a sharp point that it wants to stab you with. We've already talked about I didn't mean to open Gene Pollinator. We've already talked about Gene Pollinator. Menon Uthros Exile. Do we have? Okay, hold on. Menon Ilvoy they them. Menon is a disgraced former researcher of the Uthros Combine. An Ilvoy research outpost has set up a classified research station deep in the atmosphere of Uthros. After being expelled from the Combine, Menon lent the service to Tezzeret to stay in system, hoping to solve the mystery of Uthros and capitalize on it. They are an adept cloud sculptor, an Ilvoy technique used to shape hard surfaces from superdense gases, a polyglot, and a constant presence at Tezzeret's side. So, yeah. What's a polyglot means? It means they speak multiple languages. So I guess bilingual would be 2 languages, and polyglot would be like more than 2 languages. 1 generic, 1 blue, 1 red. Legendary creature, Jellyfish Advisor. Flying. Whenever an artifact you control enters, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. What crime did you commit that makes you my best option? Art's by Frederica Setayawan. Um, so the Menon we've seen it. We have a different Menon card. It's like mono blue, but it's interesting that this one here is red because we know red is an enemy color of blue within the context of Magic the Gathering. Blue is all about like perfection through knowledge. The idea of that like your mind you shouldn't like appeal to emotions too much. You should put your mind. You should think first, and like think about the future and try to do things as perfectly as possible. And then red's about like living in the moment. It's about embracing your emotion as much as possible. Um, Stuff like that. So very, very interesting to have a blue red here when we know the Udo's combine is like mostly blue. Potentially representative of a conflict. Um, and here we get to see what kind of like what a good sculptor Menon is. Here we see him sculpting on the fly, which like is looks very impressive. Because I don't think we see every art doing every Ilvoy doing this. So here we have him like literally almost airbending, where he's like sculpting these clouds into solid things and moving. They seem like very like they seem like they're being reshaped as he moves as like a mobile thing, and then he's got like arrows here to defend himself, I suppose. Um, and here we have all his little robots. So the Ilvoy have like these little robot mecha that they use to, because they don't have like conventional like they don't express themselves like in the conventional way that a human does. So they have like these little robots to convey expressions to let you know how they're feeling. Obviously, he's very. I mean, not he. They are very pissed or annoyed. So flying, we can literally see them flying because they're floating on like this cloud thing. Whenever an artifact you control enters, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. Just cares about artifacts. Just trying to figure out what's going on. It rewards you for giving them artifacts like research and stuff. Plays with the void zone, which they do show an interest in. So I would say like a ton of blue in this art, blue, purple, a little bit of pink. There's people in the background. I think I've talked about this art a ton too. I do like also like how even these like robots have like little like clouds behind them. I don't know if the idea is that they're cloud sculpting somehow, or they're just launching themselves forward like a jet. I do love how many of them there are. Like they're all like, not, like usually we only see like one or two, but there's like a bunch of them. Like Menon probably plan to grab this, etc. And here we have all these people, or maybe these other ones are chasing them. I'm unclear, but these ones definitely look like they're not chasing them. Looks like they're going with them. So yeah, and here we are once again. We have like a sort of like metaphorical barrier where like they're exiting this facility into like metaphorical freedom of the outside world, which we can see as they cross over from this threshold to this threshold, and they're literally looking out to like the sky and stuff. Mutinous Massacre. 3 generic, 2 black, 2 red. For 7 total? Yeah, 7. Sorcery. Choose odd or even. Destroy each creature with mana value of the chosen quality. Then gain control of all creatures until the end of turn. Untap them, they gain haste until the end of turn. Caveron Degradation poisoned many hearts, which the monos are happy to exploit. Caveron's degradation, so the planet dying, basically led to like corruption and fighting and stuff. And here we even see like a bit of the monos influence because there's like a little symbol here that's like more purple. Quentin Gleam. So these two are the main people fighting, but also we have people fighting behind here. We have some people with like the monos marks. So the monos are clearly like present and corrupting them somehow. And I do like how some of the weapons look like very makeshift. They could be actual weapons because it's sci-fi weapons. But the way I read is like some of these could also be like makeshift weapons. Like he just grabbed it like it's a mutiny. So he just grabbed some shit and started fighting. There's an explosion behind them, which helps highlight this a little bit. And just tons of like violence going on and stuff, explosions, like to make this seem like look extra dangerous, extra violent. So there's that too. I do like how like this path, like this person's like running down this path, like your eyes are literally guided like this way because there's literally like literally a line of this person from this person to that person that you're supposed to follow. And these perspectives I always find interesting, where it's like kind of like a behind perspective, and we're looking like over their shoulder or whatever, or next to them into the whatever's here. And this place is clearly on fire. So like this card destroys like a bunch of stuff. So the idea is like this place is like on fire. It's literally being destroyed. So you destroy creatures with odd or even mana, they all die, and then you gain control of all the other creatures, and then you swing. So it's a combination of black and red, where it's like a black board wipe. Black also has like extinction event, Like choose odd or even, kill everything that's odd or kill whatever you choose. And then red is like gain control of like all these creatures. So I do like the mix of that where it's like a mutiny in the sense that you overthrow somebody by killing like a bunch of creatures, then you gain control of the remaining people, and try to overthrow the captain, i.e. the enemy player. And I guess the idea here is like black doing whatever it takes to win, so killing people, and then red's like appeal to emotion. Because red and blue both have like gain control of target creature, but blue tends to be a bit like blue doesn't usually give haste, and additionally red tends to like relinquish control at the end of the turn. So it's the idea that red's like appealing to emotion, and emotion can be very fleeting. So you convince someone to join you, they're like, I don't know, I thought about this a little bit. It's not maybe not such a good idea, and like that red magic kind of thing. But blue's like more like a factual, like logical, like gathering, like more long term control manipulation. Also, does this look like a Ben 10 watch to anyone else to me? Like, I swear, because like Ben 10 watch, it has been purple, because like of like Eon, like $1,500. Anyway, oh, that's cute. It's like a little albedo version. Sorry, it's like, does this look like a like? I'm not crazy, right? That looks like the Ben 10 like watch symbol, like little sand dial. No, like no. To me, that looks like a Ben 10 watch. And I think the watch has been purple before. It was purple because I think the influence of Aeon and maybe some of the like Anur aliens. I don't just be clear. I don't think it's a Ben 10 reference. I just think it's like a funny coincidence. Purple. Purple controlled or risk of temporal threat. Oh wait, I didn't realize. Hold on, sorry. Reconfiguration mode, great, active mode. Pink underspell effect. But where is the gallery where it shows the purple watch? I don't know. This is about Magic the Gathering. I'm not gonna get too into Ben 10 right now. The best I got is the Zombie Tricks, which is like one of the multiverse Ben's Omnitrix. Oh, also color palette. Yeah, a lot of like red and black, obviously. Orange and black, a lot of red and black, a dark color palette. Pinnacle Emissary. So I talk about the pinnacles usually like blue and silver, but here it's like more of like a red color. Although that could be tinted from the lighting. It's a little hard to tell. But Pinnacle Emissary. Also, once again, the Pinnacle having like a multicolored theme a little bit, like the idea of like bringing people together, people of different belief systems and cultures. A Pinnacle Emissary, one generic, one blue, one red. Artifact creature robot. Whenever you cast an artifact spell, create a 1/1 colorless drone artifact creature token with flying. And this token can only block creatures with flying. Warp, one blue, one red. 3/3 Alejandro Pacheco. Pacheco. So here's like some sort of portal they're coming out of. So I guess the warp cost might not necessarily be them on a ship, but them using some sort of teleportation device. A little hard to tell. So they can warp in. I do love the designs of like the robots. So like looks like they're scanning something. I guess whenever you cast, so it's possible that whatever this is looking for something, which is like we can see with like a scanning. So like maybe the idea is that whenever you cast an artifact, it's like scanning. Another drone comes in to investigate. This token only can block only creatures with flying. Something that blue sometimes has like as a drawback is that sometimes blue can only block creatures with flying. So I know in black, Mark has gone on record and saying that the reason black can't block certain things, like the idea of like the black creature being like selfish and not willing to like put itself on a limb for you, like oh, I'm looking out for myself, I'm not gonna sacrifice myself for you. And a red represents more like emotion, so it's more like I don't want to swing because I'm scared, or I don't want to block because I'm scared, or I don't want to block because I'd rather be attacking. But with blue, I think the idea it could be like similar to a black reason where it's like blue being a little bit more selfish. It could also be that it, it's like it doesn't want to like people call it like refer to it as like high flying. Could also be maybe it's just like more like it can't reach it or something. I don't know. But So obviously blue and red, a lot of blue and red. I do love this cape. It's like this like weird cape that's like coming out like this thing. It's like a weird net thing. But and also like the whirling. So the whirling is like clearly like some sort of portal, but also like we know the stars in the background, right? So the stars are clearly getting warped by whatever this is, and there's a red tint to everything. Yeah. How much time have I hold on. Sorry. 1 hour, 155. 55 minutes. I don't know. I'm thinking about just doing colorless today, but I'm not 100% sure. So I'd like to get the last of the. There's actually not as many colorless cards as I thought there were in Edge of Eternities. But Raga, Step Gastronaut. So Gastra, I assume is like relating to like, your stomach and stuff. Um Also, Ragas is once again an example of that. The main creature types we see in the set are not the only creature types that. Alternative name for gourmet is a person whose focus is narrowly directed to the enjoyment of fine food. I might do clothes today just because to get out of the way. But so Ragas is a good example that there are creatures that what because we talked about the five main creature types on in Sothera, but those are not the only creature types within the world of the Edge. It's not just Ilvoy and Eomedians. Like we got like Ragos, whatever species they are. I think Ragos is actually a he. No, hold on. He him. Lobster folk. How many lobsters do we have in Magic the Gathering? Anyway, actually, hold on. Also, this is the first like not blue lobster we've gotten. Like lobsters are, I assume, are usually blue because they're sea creatures. Oh, we only had 2 lobsters, and none of them have been blue. And one's an unset rock lobster. Creatures named scissor lizards, scissors lizard cannot block or talk, cannot attack or block. May take the lobster for granite. Also, rock lobsters are a reference to the song Rock Lobster. I'm a rock lobster. Anyway, so it's kind of like a joke here where it's like this food is like inedible normally. Like this is like literally like metal. It's like a filter or something. It's like gears and stuff in their food. Um, Ragos, Deaf Gastronaut. 1 red, 1 white. Legendary creature, lobster citizen. Artifacts you control are foods addition to their other types and have 2 generic, 1 tap. Sacrifice this artifact, you gain 3 life. 1 generic tap. Sacrifice a food, Ragos 3 steal 3 damage to each opponent. At the beginning of each end step, if you gain life this turn, untap Ragos. Zack Stella. Being the infamous ship's chef in Sothera, Ragos, the most infamous ship's chef in Sothera, Ragos claims to have served on almost every freelancer vessel in the system. Been engaged to an Eomedian princess. Do the Eomedians on Sothera have a princess? I mean, it could be just referred to other Eomedians because they might have a princess, but fought his way through half a dozen KMN cruisers, which is Cav. They're Cav military with nothing but a frying pan. Turned down a Sunstar Field commission. Why would they? Why would they commission you, bro? I don't understand. You either with the Sun Star or you're not. Commune with the Star God and Uthros' core, and been expelled from the Monolith Refectory on Susur Sukundi. Whether or not these stories are true, Ragas' signature ingredients are more than most humanoids' digestive tracts can handle. Thankfully, Ragas has found an unlikely crew, a group of sentient mechans who wish to experience the sensations of eating, and Ragas is just the chef to cater to them. So, I assume the fact that food deals damage to you is a reference to that fact. Like the food is inedible for people, so it deals damage to the opponent, i.e., players who are going to be other people. So the idea is that if they try to eat the food or Ragas feeds it to them, they take damage. But otherwise, you can eat the food, or your robots can eat the food, and you gain life. I think the red is kind of interesting here because we talked about red in relation to like smithing and stuff. I think the red's potential connection to cooking would be similar, where it's like the idea of cooking as a form of self-expression, as an art to convey your emotion and action. And then white, well, Ragus wants to help like these robots like feel like what it's like to cook. So like the emphasis on like helping others, putting others first. So this idea of like red artistic expression with like white, I want to put other people first. In this case being the robots, or I want to like help the greater good, which would be by making them food that they can eat and heal from. I already talked about this art. Like, it's kind of funny when you look at the art because like none of the stuff is like edible to like an organic being. But here we have 2 robots like waiting excitedly for to try some of this food. Ragus has is mostly like yellow with like a bit of white, in red, which makes sense because it's a red white card. So yellow is often used as like a shorthand for like white mana, and then also like a bit of red, and even like the color palette's like a bit like tinted red back here. So I do like how these robots are framed in the window so you can see them clear. I do like how he has this like little sprig. He's like these big claws for like cooking and chopping, and then like this little sprig to put like a little garnish on top. But 2/2. Sammy ship's engineer. I've already talked about Sammy before. So here we see Sammy with their cat Miri. So Miri shares a name with like an old Magic character, but they're not the same character. Because Miri was like a humanoid cat person, and this Miri is just like a pet. So here we have Sammy, with Miri. At the beginning of your end step, if you control 2 or more tapped creatures, create a tap 2/2 colorless robot creature artifact creature token. So the idea here is, I guess, Sammy's just like tinkering with robots and making robots. And so they're not like on the hunt for Sammy because they're not on the hunt for Miri because Miri's right there. They are framed like in the window. So like there's like not only are they framed in the window, but there's like stars behind them to help draw attention to like their face and head, and also like this highlight, like the highlight of this planet's atmosphere goes up them to help draw attention to them. And I do like all this cozy stuff. Like this looks like a little cozy place. I don't know why I'm stuttering so much today. Blah. Maybe I should just talk slower. So this place looks very cozy to hang out in. We have Miri. They're highlighted in this by this window. So they're the most important character here. Here we have like a little robot, like little stickers on it, which is cute. Planet down below. They also have like a lot of red and gold on them. So because they're like the Boros, the red and white. I meant by Boros, I mean like the alignment, not literally with the Boros faction. Whenever Sammy's down their luck, they return to their own old comfort, the clinks and clattering of tinkering. So this is definitely like a picture of Sammy like in their like most comfortable. They're with their cat. They have like the robot with them. All this stuff looks very soft and nice to rest on. So clearly, this card is representing some sort of downtime. It's also represented by the fact that like it rewards you for having tap creatures. So it's after because you can tap your creatures by attacking, but also sometimes other things can tap your creatures. But either way, the idea is like this is downtime, like after the fight, or after the work has been done. Sammy just chilling, making robots, which come out as 2/2 colorless artifact creature tokens. Which is different from Sammy Wildcat Captain because Sammy in the story is searching for their lost cat Miri. So here they don't have Miri with them, and they're in combat. They're looking for Miri. They're in a more active situation. Here we have them throwing around like these little robots to like hitting them. And here we have like the little I forget what it's called in the stories, like an antenna rapier, I think, or something. Their antenna rapier, this neon like yellow glow. Once again, some red and gold with like some black, but red and gold because they're red and white. So I do like how there's like this red background caused by some sort of alarm or something. Double strike, vigilance, spells you cast have affinity for artifacts. The hard way it is, Kira and Yanner. So the other card, the flavor text of the other card was Sammy talking like, and they're most comfortable. Here's Sammy in combat. But it's represented by the fact that this card has double strike and vigilance. So this card wants you to swing with it because it has double strike, but also it won't tap when you swing with it. Now, but I think what's also nice is that this card actually works very well with the other Sammy card, because this card once you have like 2 or more tapped creatures, and then it creates a 2/2 colorless robot artifact creature token. And while this Sammy doesn't tap, it has affinity for artifacts. So every time that Sammy creates a robot artifact creature token, it makes your stuff cost 1 less. And Sammy's like highlighted here as the most important because we can see Sammy's face, but we can't see the face of other people because they're being walled by like these weird. I think they're like like they're supposed to be like grappling things. I forget exactly how they are described in the story, but they're supposed to be like grappler things. And I think the red's nice contrast to the purple here. But I also like how Sammy has little glowing blue bits. Anyway, and it's very interesting that Sammy, like I talked about how like this neon yellow tends to be like Cav stuff. And while Sammy isn't Cav, we do see Sammy hang around like Tonuk a lot, who is a Cav. I'm not sure if this is intentional, but I do like this like cute sort of like connection between Sammy and like a Cav. like this like little color palette. Like, oh wait, this is the color, like, this is the color the Cav like to use. This idea that this might be connected to, like, might be a reference to, like, Sammy's connection to, Cav like Tunnock of Tannock. I guess it'd be Tannock because they say Tan the man, which implies that the Tan part rhymes with man. So Tannock, Tannock. Um, Siege Ship Brood Tender. 1 black, 1 green. Features an insect citizen. When this creature enters, mill 3 cards. 3 generic, 1 black, 1 green. Sacrifice this creature. Return target creature or spacecraft from your graveyard to the battlefield. Activate only as a sorcery. Inspiration blooms from Fertile Rot. Eric Wilkerson. So once again, we have a take on black and green that like emphasizes like the idea of like life and death being not too different in the sense that they're like one big cycle as opposed to like one being more important than the other. Black is like, I'm willing to do whatever it takes to win. I don't shy away from death. And green being like, death is a natural part of life. Every living thing dies, and you should accept that. And we know specifically with the Eumedians, the idea is that Eumedians who die might have like other purposes. Like they might be repurposed. Their biomass might be repurposed for something else, or they might just be used as fertilizer or something. And there's no shame about that. It's not like horrifying to them. So it enters in mills 3 cards, so like it adds like something to the graveyard, and you can sacrifice this creature can sacrifice itself to give life to a creature or a spacecraft. Spacecraft makes like less flavor sense, but it's just there I think for mechanics because the set cares about spacecrafts, and it kind of suck if this didn't reward you for playing spacecrafts. There is like a lot of yellow here despite not being a white card, but that's like fine. Like there's clearly like a lot of green, a lot of like darker color palettes, like green and black here with like the shadow. Here's like I think I didn't really realize this at first, but that is like a that Eumedian's face. So here we literally have an Eumedian being like reborn or being subsumed to continue the cycle. And of course this person's highlighted by like literally like the light here. It's like going behind them, and there's like this more bluey background, stuff like that. And they're obviously very friendly. Like one thing here is they obviously gave this Eumedian like a more humanoid face, so they can emote a bit better, or they can emote in a way humans can understand a bit better. So here it's very obvious they're being like a very kind face. They're reaching out. It's not like they're like they're planning on eating this thing or anything. Like they're very nice to it. So yeah. Singularity Rupture. 3 generic, 1 blue, 2 black. Sorcery. Destroy all creatures. Then any number of target players each mill their half the library runner down. Rejoice, for within Sekar, the final sacrifice, you will find passage to the next eternity. Colin, Monoist Assassin. Also, isn't Sekar when they kill themselves? I think Sekar's when they activate their stones or whatever and kill themselves. What is that? Is that 2 L's or hold on? Liga Smilskane, maybe. They didn't like a lot of art, actually. Anyway. So obviously, here we have like the Singularity Rupture. Everything being sucked into this void. It's got the same black and purple as like the Sothera Super Void, so it's like there's both kind of like singularity things going on. I don't know what these. It's kind of hard to tell what colors these ships are supposed to be because like of all like the weird shadow and purple effects. I would assume Palatinate probably, but who's to say? They're weirdly triangular. And obviously you have the spiral effect to show everything being like sucked into it like a tornado or some sort of whirlpool. And these poor little people that they're not as important here because you can't see their faces, but the idea is that like it's very destructive. They're all being sucked in. Very miserable to be in this situation. So purple, and then we have like sort of like yellowy green here, but it's mostly yellow like about here, and like it's like more green towards the edges, and turns to purple and black here. And of course, like destroy all creature represents like its singularity, so it sucks up everything, destroys everything, and then it mills stuff because it's sucking stuff that you could be playing in your library into like a void, into the i.e. the graveyard, which I guess it also might play well with like the because Sothera Super Void has a card, so maybe the idea is that it plays with that a little bit. So Sothera the Super Void. Legendary enchantment. Whenever creature you control dies, each opponent chooses a creature they control and exiles it. At the beginning of your end step, if a player controls no creature, sacrifice Sothera. Then put a creature card exiled from within onto the battlefield under your control with 2+1/+1 counters on it. So it actually plays very well with the Super Void itself, which makes sense because this is clearly like some sort of Monoist thing, because Kalman Monoist Assassin saying this, which I don't think we have as like a card. I don't imagine we're gonna get anytime soon because I don't know how many I don't know how many people are shooters for Kalman, the Monoist Assassin, or who's gonna know what you're talking about. But so you can activate this, kill every creature, which would activate this, which would activate this for each creature that dies. And then if there's no creatures, since all the creatures are killed, if there's no creatures, you can put one on the battlefield under your control. So it's very interesting how they play very well together because they're both singularities. Space-time anomaly. 2 generic, 1 white, 1 blue for 4 mana total. Sorcery. Target player mills cards equal to their life total. The Howling Winds could hardly be heard over the maddening thoughts of the God Core. Loic Kana Yagia. So this is actually Uthros, and this gives like this tells us this gives us like a little bit of a hint of what the God Core is, or what's at the center of the planet. Here we have the space-time anomaly. So it's a white-blue card, so we have like a lot of clouds because white and blue have a lot of flyers, so they often have like a lot of sky and cloud imagery. But more specifically, clouds tend to be white, and we also have like a blue explosion. And here we have Eumedians. I don't know if they're being launched out of here or they're being sucked in. And here we have like an Ilvoyan spaceship, and then I think it's a Palatinate spaceship. It's definitely Palatinate. There's gold, white, and has like the weird orb at the end. And Eumedian tend to have like this green color palette with like little blue vents and tend to look more organic. And then Ilvoy tend to look more like white filigree sculpted from clouds, and they tend to like look like either clouds or water. The Palatinate specifically, I think we've seen that specific ship before, or something similar. The model, like this, it looks kind of like this, so it's something like this. Except I think the orb size is a bit off. It looks way bigger on that ship than proportionally than the other ship. But the point is that the Palatinate sometimes has like these like weird orbs on their ships. So it's definitely a Palatinate ship of some kind. And blue tends to be associated with like temporal like magic, because the idea of like blue is all about like using min-maxing your time as much as possible to use it properly. So it's like I'm gonna take as much time as I need so I can create more time, or I can mess with your time so you have less time to do something. But here it's like not actually messing with time, like the amount of turns you take it anyway. It's like target player mills cards equal to your life total. So white cares about life and might do stuff equal to your life total, but blue cares about like milling. So I guess the idea here is that like the more life you have, the more it mills, basically. Station Monitor. 1 white, 1 blue. Creature Lizard Artificer. Whenever you cast your second spell each turn, create a 1/1 colorless drone artifact token. A creature token with flying, and this creature can block only creatures with flying. Keep tabs on a whole station is too much for just one. Kamele Alquier. Once again, another creature that's not like, I don't think native to Sothera, but definitely implies that there's more than one kind of like species hanging around the edge. White blue. So this idea of monitoring makes sense for like a white-blue card, like the idea that white wants to watch and make sure you're doing the right thing, and this idea of truth and honesty and justice, and then blue like cares about information. So blue is more likely to lean into the whole like monitoring thing because like wants to know as much as possible. It mentions that there's more than one, that you can't just monitor a whole station by yourself, and that's where these robots come in, where these robots help monitor things, and it's even referenced in like in the mechanics where like whenever you cast your second spell, creates another drone to help you watch things. If the drone can't block, is meant to be watching, mostly. And I guess the idea is that specifically this person's creating the drones, because they're clearly building it. They have like this equipment. I do like the 4 arms on them for like the lizard folk. It's a nice little like contrast, like some of the other like lizard people on the other planes. It helps draw like a difference. I'm gonna draw a distinction. There's a blue tint all over most of this art, but like here's like there's like some sort of purple light coming from somewhere. It's probably the Sothera Super Void, because if this person's on the station, right? You can see the station here. If this person's on the station, then the light might be coming from the Sothera Super Void, which sometimes looks purple. So it makes sense that if you interpret this as some sort of window, then the super void's out here somewhere. I do love how much like of a presence the super void has in all the art. Like the artists do a really good job working together and making sure that you don't forget the super void's like a constant thing. Like you're never under the pressure that like this is a plant like this place has just like a normal sun. It's like the super void's always present. It's always looming. It's like this thing. Um, I do like how you can like there's like a bit of a smile here. Like there's enough of like enough of there's enough anthropomorphization to see that to give them like human traits, let them smile and stuff. And I do like how it's like they're lit up by like the blue on this side, by like the purple like of the space on this side, which creates like which helps like draw attention to them. And they're clearly like in their element a little bit because like the way they're kind of slouched a bit instead of straight up. So they're clearly like relaxed in some way. I think like they're not stressed or not like up constantly monitoring, and kind of shows that these robots make their job a bit easier probably. And once again, their outfit does look like a bit like potentially like silvery and blue. It's a bit hard to tell under the lighting, but I think if you took away like the lighting, it would come off as kind of like silver and blue, which again makes sense with the Pinnacle because the Pinnacle seems to lean towards that color palette. Tanek Memorial Ensign. I think we've already talked about this card. We definitely talked about this card before. I went over it when I was reading the set. An infantry officer of what was formerly the lowest commissioned rank. So Tanek's a bit inconsistent in design sometimes because they kind of like sometimes the legs. I guess sometimes the legs like kind of like bend backwards like lizard legs when they depict Tanek, but sometimes they're like human legs, or it's like they have like the knee joint. I guess the answer might be like maybe he can like lock them, can like lock like the joint between the knee and the ankle, but that's by I'm assuming it might be an inconsistency created by the fact that you have multiple artists who aren't always privy to what the other one is doing all the time. Like here he clearly has like a is like some sort of bend between like his ankle and his knee, like it bends backwards, almost like a dog leg or something. But whoops, but here it's like more like a humanoid leg. Legendary creature Kavu pilot. Landfall. Whenever a land you control enters, Tunic deals 1 damage to each component. If this is the second time this ability is resolved this turn, draw a card. So we know Cav is basically like falling apart. It's like crumbling apart. So the idea I think here is that as Cav crumbles, sometimes like lands hit each other, or entire mountains can like fall down. So that's like why it cares about landfall. And the idea that also that the Cav want to search these lands for their stuff. Also this flame is kind of fucked up when you remember that the reason that Tunic was banished and that Tunic like beats himself up is because he accidentally he redirected an asteroid from like a city and redirected to a smaller town, but even though the town was smaller, he accidentally killed like a bunch of people. It's kind of fucked up that the flavor here is that whenever land enters, you deal damage to people because he redirected a land, like an asteroid. And they saw it as a big no-no because the idea was that like it was unfair because it was unfair because a lot of people would probably have seen it as like a trolley pump situation. It would have been like that was like an okay thing to do, or that was even the right thing to do because he saved more people than he killed. But to the Cav, that was like messing with like the natural order, and it wasn't fair because it didn't give the people in the village enough time to react because they didn't think they were hit. But suddenly the city, which was preparing, like the city in their heads, like the city would have basically like made their bed and could lie in it. But suddenly you didn't give the town enough time to react because the town didn't think they were gonna get hit. This kind of like leans into the idea of like Red embracing like the sort of chaos of the universe, like Red and this idea of fairness versus what White thinks is fair. Like White might go like, oh, it's fair to like sacrifice people to save more people, but Red's like, we shouldn't get involved. Like who's to say? Like kind of like that. And this idea that Red might be like more focused on maybe like the individual and not always just like trying to save as many people as possible. Serving the Memorial Navy was nothing like the posters made it out to be. David Audon Nash. So yeah, once again, I'm kind of moving a little fast on some of these cards because I've already talked about like some of these cards before. Like I've talked about Tonic plenty before. Green card, so he himself is green because he's a lizard person, but also has like a lot of orange and red and warm colors. And the background's like covered like in a layer of orange, so he stands out a bit more because he steps out from the background to the foreground, and this doesn't have like that as much orange on him. Um. So yeah. Um. Do I do colorless? I might. How much time? How much have I been streaming? We're shooting from 120. We could stop, but I also want to get kind of get Eternities over with, just so I can do lands next time. We will do colorless. We'll do some because there's not very many colorless, and then we'll do lands. I think next time, and we'll be all done. Actually, no. I'm thinking about maybe I take a break. Hold on, real quick. I'm not gonna like be gone for. Well, actually, no. I'm thinking about it. I'm thinking about it. Talking to myself. We'll just see how far we get and how I'm feeling. Because I think the smart thing to do would be to do colorless now. And then next time we do the lands, and then we'd be done. So all fate scroll. 3 generic artifact. Add 1 mana of any color. Sacrifices 7 generic tap. Sacrifices artifact. Draw X cards where X is the number of differently named lands you control. For navigating that which was, is, and will be. So all fate scroll. I don't know if this is supposed to be a monolith or what. I don't really know which faction is using this, if any specific main faction. So the idea is that you can add. I think it's just adding more mana because it's just mostly mechanical, just so you can have a reason to have it around. But you can sacrifice it and draw X cards because it's giving you information because you can see into the fates, and then it draws X is a differently number of named lands you control. So I guess the idea is that the more planets you have, the more planets you can see the fates of, the more information you have. So the more you draw. Ours by Sam Guai, and it's really striking how like the background is like almost like pitch black, with like some imperfections like purposely put in there. And a lot of purple and blue, which I think is just like relates to in this plane. Purple and blue often like is used to just represent space in general. Sometimes they use like other colors, but I think it's usually purple and blue. So you get the sense this person's like sitting in some sort of void, almost metaphorically or literally. And I love like the use of purple and blue here. And I do like how it's all like a uniform color. Like who the person is doesn't really matter as much, and it's all treated almost like as one entity. What's important is the scroll, and then here we have them like reading the fates or pulling fates out or something. Bygone Colossus. 9 generic. I tried to run this card in my draft. Honestly, I think I just fucked up. I think I didn't realize that the idea is that you can warp it in and then use it to pay for like to station something and then it leaves, or you can warp it in and then some things can give it haste and you can just swing in for 9. Artifact creature robot giant. Warp 3 generic. The edge is littered with the vestiges of civilizations annihilated by the Eldrazi. Maxime Menard. So we know that like the edge isn't a conventional plane. It's been confirmed it's not a conventional plane. It exists on the edge of the multiverse, to kind of like a peel of some sort. And stuff from the multiverse gets ejected out into the edge sometimes. So I'm wondering if the reason that the Eldrazi are there is because since the Eldrazi live in between planes, they live in the blind eternities, that sometimes they get ejected out of the red wall into the edge. Or if sometimes they just end up on the edge because they don't live on a normal plane, so they can just like sometimes wander into the edge. Which wouldn't make sense. Because I was wondering like how's the edge still around if the Titans were here? And it's possible that the Titans weren't. That the Titans were just in between planes, and sometimes stuff gets like Eldrazi spawn that exists in the blind eternities gets like launched into the edge, but it could also be something else. I do like how this Eldrazi like pose like they're almost like holding it's not quite like in their palm, but like they're reaching out for like this black hole. It's like not a black hole. I mean super void. Technically different. They're both singularities, but technically different. So they're reaching out for the singularity to represent almost like the grasping for it of some sort. Because we know it's a vestige of something that the remains of something that was annihilated by the Eldrazi. So it could be that the idea that this represents like some sort of annihilation, and they're reaching out for it. interesting. It's kind of like smooth, kind of like the monoliths, but they're like glowing a different color. Like the monoliths usually have like purple. This is like glowing like a weird like blue shade of blue. Which I think is also meant to represent that it's an artifact creature. Like it doesn't have like a color alignment. So it has like this kind of like because they use this specific shade of blue sims for like colorless stuff, for colorless stuff. But I don't know why I can't talk today. They have a purple cloak to represent like the connection to like the super void or how close they are to it. I do like how this thing is zoom in right here just to show you how fast some of the stuff is moving and like all the stuff being sucked into the super void. I assume this is Susur Secundi, the planet closest to the super void. Because otherwise it'd just be a planet that was destroyed when the super void happened. But I think it's Susur Secundi. I think it's a remnant, and we know the monoliths seem to like have some sort of vague connection to the Eldrazi, or at least know how to use them to their benefit. I do like how like this robot's kind of like in an in between state where it's like here we have like the roiling of like the super void sucking things in. And here we have like this pillar almost as like a barrier. It's like barriers, so, like they're in between like this place of like structure and then like stuff being torn apart. And here we have like the clouds below, like they're very high up probably, or it's just fog. Who's to say? Yeah. Chrome Companion. This is a card that everyone loved when it first came out. Too generic. Artifact creature because it's a cyborg dog. I do love it. It's very cute. Very cute corgi. Artifact creature dog. Whenever this creature becomes tapped, you gain 1 life. Too generic. Put target card from a graveyard on the bottom of its owner's library. Liberation Station's morale greatly increased after Rover took up residence. Gray Highsmith. So I don't think we've seen Liberation Station. I think it's a different place. Yeah, we haven't seen Liberation Station on a card yet, but it exists. There's other stations in Sothera. That seems like it's probably Pinnacle related because it's got the silver and blue that the Pinnacle usually uses. Although there's clearly like Palatinate ships behind there, like Suma ships of some sort. No, it's not a ton to say about this card. It's clearly just going for, trying to be cute. I do like how it's like there's all this how there's all this silver, blue, and purple and cool colors, and then you get to the dog. And it's like a warmer like brown and tan-ish brownish color with like white. So it helps make the dog stand out more especially like the organic parts. And I do like how they gave it antenna for some reason. Artist is Gray Highsmith. The dog is clearly like happy. I mean, the dog isn't like giving like human traits, but the dogs, when they're like happy, excited, sometimes like they pant and stuff. You definitely get that impression here with the way this dog is moving and stepping. Dauntless Scrapbot. 3 generic. I think these are like little eyes here. I didn't really realize that. But when this creature enters, exile each opponent's graveyard. Create a lantern token. So I guess you exile the graveyard. So it's a scrap bot, so it's creating a lantern token instead of scrap. The wastelands of yesterday's colonies will pay the road for tomorrow. So yeah, I guess that colony has like left or died or whatever, and they're creating a new colony which we can use to like look for lands. Alex Brandwin. So this robot's like mostly white in coloration, obviously, even though it's colorless. But I do like how like this part's like clearly like more white, and then there's like this red tint on everything behind it. So this is the main focus. This is the attention because this is where the brightest light is. And then as you get further away, it's like more orange. I'm kind of speeding up a little bit just because I don't want to take forever on this. And I do like how it has little eyes, so you can tell when it's looking a little bit. And the artist is like so crazy because they add like little reflection details, so you can like see like the landscape that's like facing towards, which is like so unnecessary, but such a cool little detail. And I think this is like a piece of a lander actually. If you look at the lander tokens, I think it's a piece of a lander token. The Dominion Bracelet. 2 generic. Legendary artifact equipment. Equipped creature gets +1/+1, has 15 generic. Exile the Dominion Bracelet. You control target opponent during their next turn. This ability costs X less activate, where X is the creature's power. Activate only as a sorcery. Equip 1 generic. Nathaniel Himon. So, I believe they actually discussed this in one of the Edge of Eternities videos and like promotions, and I think it's a reference to a very specific like sci-fi piece of sci-fi, like a sci-fi book. I don't remember what the reference is, and I don't know what the reference is. But just so you know, for full context, this is a reference to something. and you can use it to like, control people. And obviously, you need some sort of like the more powerful you are, the easier it is to use the device. So if you're too weak, you can't really use it that well. But if you're really powerful, you can like exert control of other people. Um, Interestingly, there's like despite like this being like like a pinkish sort of like explosion coming out of here, it's a Palatinate person using this. So this could imply something about the Palatinate at large, like the methods they're willing to go to like bring what they believe is order or do the right thing. Like they're willing to literally mind control people potentially. But this could also be just be someone being corrupted by like the allure of mind control. But then again, we see like sort of one of like literally vaporize microwave Cap to death for the supposed greater good. So yeah. So but they're clearly Palisade because they're white and gold and they have like the equipment. And they're very menacing. They have like shadow over them. Their eyes are glowing, which shows like some sort of influence. Um, and then purple background because this is mostly yellow and gold. The End Stone, 7 generic. Legendary artifact. Whenever you play a land or cast a spell, draw a card. At the beginning of your end step, your life total becomes half your starting total rounded up. The feature is set. The present remains uncertain. Ryan Pancoast. So I've already talked about this a little bit. I've already talked about this card before. So once again, this mirrors the Super Void with how like it sort of looks like an accretion disc, or I think the Super Void's like a light disc or something. Hold on. Uh, bu- 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 Whatever. The point is that the Super Voids do not have an accretion disc. They have like a disc of light around them. Um, so it kind of mirrors that. It could also obviously it does obviously mirror a black hole by extension because the accretion disk can like warping gravity. But I do like how time becomes like weird here because you can see like this person's like hands, and also their hands are becoming unraveled and being sucked into like the super void. But also it's becoming like all this elemental stuff like water and plants, but also like stuff is like dying too. It's almost like they're becoming like one with the universe in a way. Um, so we know the Ensign can like mess with like causality. So I guess that's the idea with like the life total thing is that the Ensign's trying to keep you alive, but it can only do so much. So if you have like a bunch of health, it'll bring you down. But if you're like at one, it'll bring you back up. But it can only do so much. You can still be killed obviously. Um, and whenever you draw a land or cast a spell, draw a card, you draw a card because things are working in your favor. Because we know the Endstone will bend things to work in your like. It's not necessarily good luck per se, but it's kind of like a monkey's paw thing a little bit, where it it has like its own will, right? So once, like for example, once Sammy and crew like drop it off somewhere, so things will happen to work out, and will always happen to work out in a way where like it gets that point. But there are limitations to its power, which I'm bad at describing. Like it has to directly interact with people to be able to like to mess with their timeline and their past and whatever. But Eternity Elevator. So Eternity Elevator is on Caveron. It's on the Caveron that was, which is the part that has like a wall to prevent it from like crumbling away. It's not perfect. It is still like falling apart, and it will eventually fall apart. But there's Caveron that is, which is actively falling apart, and the Caveron that was, which is falling apart much slower. The Eternity Elevators have what the cavies like I think go to like their station to like move the citizens from like the crumbling planet. Um, the Eternity Elevator, 5 generic, legendary artifact spacecraft. Tap, add three colorless. Tap, add X station 20 once you have 20 plus charge counters. Add X mana of any one color. Or X is the number of charge counters on the Eternity Elevator. Josu Solando. So I guess the idea is that maybe it acts like a bit like a land in some ways. It's like it's not a land, but it's like so big and so connected to like the planet below that you can tap it for mana like a land. Um, Obviously it's colorless, but it has like a white color palette with like in contrast to Caveron's like red and orange. I just do love how much of a shit show looks like down here, where it's like shit's crumbling apart. The thing is like the atmosphere looks like it's on fucking fire up here. Like holy shit. And then in comparison, this place looks like downright peaceful. Um, Again, a card we already talked about before numerous times, so I'm not gonna spend too much time onto it. on it. But I also do like the perspective, like how it gets like how it's so big, but like we're like way up here, and it's really small down here. Like it comes up to this point and it gets bigger and bigger, so you can see it. Extinguisher battleship. So very weird ship, but it's clearly some sort of cannon or battleship. Artifact creature spacecraft. So once again, the spacecraft stuff has like even with the Eternity elevator, spacecraft stuff has like borderless edges, which I think represents like a certain level of freedom and access to, like the broader universe that going around on foot wouldn't give you. And here we have, I do like how the super void looks like an actual black hole here, or that could just be an eclipse. But when the spacecraft enters, destroy target non-creature permanent. Then the spacecraft deals 4 damage to each creature. Flying trample. So I mean, it's a fucking cannon, so it destroys a permanent like a planet or an artifact, and then it hurts each creature. And he can even destroy enchantments actually. Flying and trample once you accrue it. Danny Schwartz. So it has like the sort of like turquoise I was talking about that they use sometimes to represent like colorless stuff, and gray. And then but the cannon itself was like orange and like fiery, so it creates a nice contrast and also shows that how destructive it is. And I like how it has like this little like thing in front of it, like it's like piercing through like an atmosphere of some sort or something. And here we have what I assume is Cavron, maybe, I'm not 100% sure, but I wouldn't be surprised if this is Cavron because it's like the only molten fiery looking planet we know. And then that would make this like the super void or something. I do also like the rings here. Okay, it's been like I've been streaming for like 2 hours. Whoops. So I think for now I'm going to. My stomach's like growling like a beast. Yeah, it's been 2 hours, so I'm actually gonna start. No, it hasn't been 2 hours. It just says it's been an hour and 30 minutes. Do I stream for 2 hours? I just finished this off. Whatever, we'll go for it. Nutrient block. 1 generic. Artifact food. Indestructible. Sacrifice 2 generic. Sacrifice tap. Sacrifices artifact you gain through life. When this artifact is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, draw a card. What flavor do you want, Sammy? Bland, dense, or vanilla? Tanak. Francisco Miara. So this could also be referenced like in this thing that brought up in the story itself, where it says like if there's so many color palettes, you basically have 2 options, which is like either go with flavorless, so it's not terrible for anybody, or try to get every flavor in there, so everyone has something they enjoy. But here it's clearly flavorless, and vanilla. I do like the joke where it's indestructible, where you can't destroy it. Like it's so durable, like there's a laser cutting through it, and you can't destroy it. I do like how laser hasn't even cut all the way through it. Like this part is like unscathed, but like the plate's been cut through. So that's kind of a funny joke. You can't eat it, of course, like any other food, and gain 3 life. And when it's put into the graveyard, to draw a card, which I think is more just like a mechanical thing. I do like how utterly disgusting this thing looks. I don't know what this is. It's just like fat, or what is this? What's this part here? Why is it not like just a cube? I don't know. There's also like a pinnacle cup of the pinnacle design on here, so that's cute. With like some weird purple liquid and some other food here. It's like more like weird alien food. It's like bumpy fruit or something. And the grayness is also used to like represent that it's colorless, but also like gray and white, so it's like colorless mostly. And I didn't even notice a spoon here. Like it's like a spoon's fork thing. Where it's clear that someone tried to eat this thing, but like it broke the fork. So I guess you just have to put this thing in your mouth, and just like hope your saliva dissolves it, or just like suck on it awkwardly, which is a very horrifying thing to imagine. Pinnacle kill ship. So Pinnacle does actually have a little bit of firepower, because Pinnacle kill ship, 7 generic artifact spacecraft. When the spacecraft enters, it deals 10 damage to 1 target creature. Station. Flying. So we don't really get to see what the spaceship is aimed at, even though it's borderless. We don't see what it's aimed at. I do like how it's like this light. It's like this sort of like turquoise light breaking through like this purple, like blue of space, like it's coming through like this cosmic cloud and gonna like hit something. We don't know what it's aimed at. We know the pinnacle works with the Drick, so it could be aimed at like an Eldrazi or something. It could also be aimed at someone who broke their the treaty or non-aggression pact, because the pinnacle tries to stay neutral as much as possible. I do like whatever I do like how it clearly has some sort of shield around it, and whatever this is, like some sort of warhead design. like high tech warhead where like this like it hits something, it's gonna hit something and explode. Um, I do like the spiky like language where it's kind of like spiky to just show that it's dangerous, but also the spikes are facing like behind it, so it's very clear that it's meant to fly in this direction, like this way. It's also like basically just like a meteor golem, except we can also station it. But meteor golem is meteor golem 7 or is it less meteor meteor golem? Yeah, it's basically meteor golem except it's I think something you can station. Well, I guess meteor golem destroys something. I guess this doesn't destroy anything. It just damages something, which I didn't realize. It damages a creature. Um. Once again, this shade of like turquoise is sometimes used for colorless cards, and like the shade of white and silver. And I do like how it's so much force, like it's pushing through like this cosmic gas or whatever, it's pushing everything out of the way, and you don't want to be hit by it. Alejandro Honore, once again. And once again, like there's like a bit of like a rainbow effect here on like the whatever energy shield this is. Survey Mechan. 4 generic. Artifact creature robot. Flying. Hexproof. This creature can't be the target spells or abilities your opponent controls. 10 generic. Sacrifice this creature. It deals 3 damage to any target. Target player draws 3 cards and gains 3 life. This ability costs X less to activate or X the number of differently named lands you control. Johan Boden. So Survey Mechan. It was a so this one's surveying Evendo. It has flying because it's in flight. It's clearly something that can fly. Hexproof, I think it's just durable. I'm not really sure what the specific flavor there is. I think it's just durable. Interesting to hear that I want you to sacrifice it. I guess the idea is that once you survey, the more lands you have, the more lands you have to survey, which makes it easier to sacrifice. And when you sacrifice it, it's on a Evendo, and Evendo has all kinds of like big creatures. So maybe the flavor is that it's getting destroyed by something, and you send it in until you don't need it anymore. You destroy, you get the information back. Arts by Johan Boden. And once again, we have that like a sort of turquoise color that's used for like colorless stuff sometimes. But we also have like a sort of neon green. It kind of looks similar to the neon green on the cab, but it could be a cab thing actually, because some of the cab have beef with the Eomidians, so it could be like a cab spy drone basically. Thaumaton Torpedo. 1 generic. That's a really weird ship. So silver because it's colorless, and then a lot of purple in the background because it's space, and the super void's probably nearby. And I think there's like a lens here, potentially. 6 generic tap. Sacrifice this artifact, destroy target non-land permanent. This ability costs 3 generic less to activate if you attack with a spacecraft this turn. So yeah, if you attack, you can unleash a torpedo, and then that destroys something. So I guess this would be what's the card, what's actually being depicted on the card. Like the ship is launching it, but like this is the torpedo. And miniature star replicating the mana aether reaction to Sun's core. Madeline Boney. So Madeline Boney is the artist. So if you don't know, on the Edge, the stars don't just use nuclear fusion. They have like mana involved in the process too, and aether. And mana and aether can also cause the stars to go supernova earlier than expected. So this is referenced here with like, we know that the stars are different from the stars that exist in our universe, for example. Drumming High Pool. So once again, this is very interesting because in the story of Edge of Eternities, Sammy says slivers are not real, but clearly slivers are real. Slivers exist in the Edge because we have Sliver High Pool, and also just for reference, I can probably bring it up the. So sometimes in movies, slivers mimic the sounds of things they hear to lure you in. Of course, slivers aren't real, and this is in the second part of the main story of Edge of Eternities. So Sammy believes slivers aren't real, which would imply that there are people who think slivers aren't real. But we know slivers are objectively real in Edge of Eternities because we've seen them on several occasions, clearly on the Edge. But they might also be like exist in the Weft right now. So either they're a newer phenomenon or they're just not super common, especially since we know they could be existing in the Weft. So silver because it's an artifact and doesn't have a color. It's colorless, 6 generic. I do like the background. The background's orange. It looks like there might be something in the background there. I'm not 100% sure. We know for example that there's like a giant sliver in the Weft right now, so that could be the influence of that. Where are you? Is it legendary? If I type in legendary wallet. Yeah, Sliver Weft Winder. That's the one. So there's like a sliver like hanging out in the weft. Whoops. Spellbook. It just summons slivers. Anyway. So there's like a sliver. I think this actually might be in the Legends article. This might be in the this might be in the Legends article. Yeah, so it's I think it's really fun the slivers have pronouns of any kind. Born of innumerable cycles of sliver broods, cultivated atop vast graveyards of lost civilizations, and over the course of epochs, an apex being emerged like nothing its predecessors had witnessed, able to burrow beyond tangible to hollow the weft as one might bore tunnels through the earth. The Weft Winder has found its home within the Chaos Wall. So far, the hive has been quiet, and for the sake of the edge, one can only hope it stays that way. So there's a hive in the Chaos Wall, which basically means they're hanging out in the Blind Eternities, I think, which is kind of scary, but so yeah. So this could represents maybe like the Sliver Weft Winder like peeking its way through. I don't know, but here we have Therming High Pool. Affinity for slivers costs one less cast for each sliver you control. So obviously you want to play slivers. Slivers you control, so, and also the idea might be also they provide like biomass or take care of each other or something because they are a hive mind. Slivers you control have double strike and haste. Okay, that sounds annoying, but it's also 6 mana. At the beginning of your upkeep, create 2/1/1 closed sliver creature tokens. I'll never escape this rock, but I fear they will. Decrypt log 4.11. So once again, someone else encountered slivers, but it's not like wide. They're not like widespread. They're not well known. I wonder if the tricks deal with slivers. I don't know. Rob Ray is the artist. So everything about this is just basically pretty on the nose. You want to play slivers. It gets cheaper if you have slivers. It rewards you for having slivers. It creates slivers because it's a high pool. So, Virulent Silencer. 3 generic. Artifact creature robot assassin. Whenever a non-token artifact creature you control deals damage to a player, that player gets 2 poison counters. A player with 10 or more poison counters loses the game. Nano-infectant, a category 5 substance capable of infecting both organics and artificials. Weaponizing it is a warp crime. Ken Yap. So I don't know if this is like a monolith thing, but that looks like a Palatinate soldier, like a variant of their helmet being attacked in space. And it can poison. I mean, it's very poisonous, so it can poison enemy players. Obviously it's mostly silver because it's a colorless card. It doesn't have a color alignment. And then we have here this poor Palatinate. We can't see their face, but we can't see this thing's faces either. So I think the reason we can't see this guy's face is because they're in space, but also like because they're not the main character. But also we can't see this thing's face either because it's kind of meant to be more scary. So there's nothing to like imprints on. There's no like human features or like traits to imprint on to see it as like emotive in any way before it stabs you. In fact, where you usually want to look for face, you just see a giant weapon that wants to hurt you. So, and the rest of the colors actually not that like vibrant or anything. They're kind of dull, but like not in a bad way. In a way that makes sense for like the painting they're going for, like mostly brown and gray and stuff. Wormwall Sweeper, 2 generic. Artifact spacecraft. When the spacecraft enters Surveil 2 station, station when it has 4 charge kind of flying 2/2. So I already talked about this card before. Once again, borderless card because it's to represent like ability, freedom, accessibility, also to make it look flashy. We're like I think there's actually might be slivers down there. So I guess the idea is that we're like with the slivers and this thing's like sweeping. So are there slivers in the worm wall? Jesus. Anyway, the idea is that this thing's like sweeping, looking for something, and we're looking up at it, and we get to witness it as it's like searching for something. Obviously the very silver, white, and like kind of bluish, which is like common colors for like colorless stuff. You can see the super void over the horizon down here. These might be slithers. Pretty stars in space. So like red, it's like pink, red, blue. It's that kind of stuff. There's also like a light coming down on the sweeper itself. Like a sweeper's like releasing a spotlight, but there's also like a spotlight shining on the sweeper, which helps highlight it, like some sort of lens flare thing, which helps highlight it. Actually, it's not a lens flare because it's hitting like the. But either way, it's like it highlights it, helps draw attention to it. As a ship, a very nice ship design. Arts by Hardy Fowler. So I think, yeah. So I'm gonna stop there. Next time we will cover the we will go over the lands, and then from there we're gonna stop going over Edge of Eternity stuff specifically. I'm gonna go over some articles and stuff. I'm still trying to figure out how much time I want to spend like streaming because I do like make videos and stuff. I do make Magic the Gathering videos and Hunter x Hunter videos. So, stay tuned for that. Anyway, I'm going to see you guys later. I'll try to stream tomorrow. I'll try to stream Grid Force tomorrow. I keep postponing it, but tomorrow I'll try to actually stream it. But I might also go to a card show tomorrow, so I might need to stream it really late or whatever. But